Welcome! If you found this video, then you're either trying to figure out how to play Afghanistan or you're one of my subscribers from OnlyFans. So, just to clarify, if you're here to watch me getting screwed, then you're in the right place, because this is HOI4's newest DLCs, Graveyard of Empires, and that is definitely fucking up my sanity. I wanted to make this video because when I tried to find videos of Afghanistan guides, there wasn't that much to help me other than how to fuck goats. So I've taken it up to myself to compile the important information that I learned from my attempts to reach world domination in Afghanistan. First, it's important to note that this is not a step-by-step guide, and this is not a template or research guide. It's more generally an overview of what I learned throughout my playthroughs. And as a side note, it was historical playthroughs. I had 3 playthroughs until I reached my world domination. I really wanted to go with fascist path and make my own Middle Eastern confederation. But I find that this DLC is still filled with so much RNG and bugs. So instead of going fascist, I ended up going with the democratic route. And I know it sounds boring, but I found out that in the end, the democratic route is actually giving you a lot more perks compared to the fascist route, and a lot more of the territory that I feel like the national focuses intended that you were supposed to have. So here is the actual guide to what focuses I took. I went straight down the democratic route to parliamentary democracy, but I didn't take it because I wanted to avoid the civil war, which in Afghanistan, even with cheese, would for me take around a half a year to a year, given the terrain. It's important to add that you can take Grand Refuge to Jadidist to get that extra democracy influence. On top of that, while I was waiting for the democracy support to go over, I went down the industrial part. Before I took look to other partners, I first of all took visit foreign capitals so I could get that extra increase of opinion, and then I would boost manually the opinions of the major countries so I would be sure to get the free civilian factories. In addition to giving you free civilian factories, it also boosts both democratic, communist and fascist influence in your country. But I found that it boosted most democratic influence, and it was good to get rid of the non-aligned influence in your country. When I finally had enough democratic influence, I went straight down to concession of the Pashtuns to finally get rid of the evil PP debuff, and then I started to focus on what was actually most important before the war started. I personally didn't want to align myself with any of the big factions, but I still wanted some of the perks that this part of the tree gives me. So I quickly, while I was democratic, aligned myself with the allies, and then I left the faction afterwards, because you do not need to be in a faction in order to do the rest of the focuses here. This opened my country for peaceful expansion with the future of Balochistan and repeal the Durin line, where I found that the British Raj would easily accept as long as you were still democratic. One of the important reasons to leave the allies as democratic was so I could do the pursue our own agenda, which would offer the possibility of making this Pakistani confederation and give me cause on the states that I've just gotten from the 2 previous focuses. The important thing was that in order to do this, I first of all needed war support, and second of all, I needed divisions in the field. In order to get enough divisions in the field, I took Adopt the Nufis so I could tweak my conscription laws, and for the last war support I needed, I sent military attaches to Asia. Doing this led me to a very good point where I could join the war on whatever side I wanted. I had the cause so I wouldn't run out of manpower anytime soon, and I had fixed my PP problem, and I was going down the industry path, so I was also slowly fixing the Afghani industry, which no matter what takes some time. And yeah, that's about it. That's a small start. This is just my take to how you can start as Afghanistan as democratic and be able to take on the world and join the world war in a proper way. I will now go on to explain how my game went and what I decided to do from there on. What I did in my game was that I created my own faction, which is unlocked through the neutral part of the tree. Then I took Protector of the Tajiks, which gave me a war goal on Russia. And then I waited until Mr. Hitler started his Operation Barbarossa, and I went in on the Soviet Union with him. In that process, I got the Finns to join my faction, and I don't know how that worked, but on top of the Finns, America then suddenly joined. So I was very secure in my game, and I could go attack Russia and take as much land as possible in the peace deal. And what was important for me was to first of all take some of the rich resources spots in Russia after the peace deal, but also to take as much of the border I could with the Chinese. Because in the democratic national focus, I could take a war goal on them. Then while the world was fighting, I tried to conquer as much as China as possible. And I had no fear of getting destroyed by the Allies, given that America was on my side. I didn't call them in because I wanted all the war score to myself. But it was nice to know that I wouldn't have to face the American industry. What happened was, when I was halfway through China joined the Allies, which landed me in a war with the British Raj and the rest of the Allies. That kind of fucked me over, but I managed to protect my core territory before it was all taken. And then I managed to push the Allies out, because given their long war with Germany and without American aid, they were quite weak. Then from that point on, I conquered the rest of China, but I waited until America had capitulated Japan so I could get all of the war score to myself. In that way, I could get all of China without having to share it with Japan. When I had secured all of Asia, I helped the Germans by defeating the UK, but I waited by capitulating all of the Allies. At that point in my game, Chile was a major ally power. So I landed in Chile, secured a foothold, but didn't capitulate them, and then I joined my American allies in their war against Germany. At that point I could also get all of the war score from the Allies if the Axis was out of the game. Me and my allies then defeated the Axis, and then after the peace conference I took down the last of the Allies to get all the land for myself. After that I was the biggest power in the world and I could go to war with whoever I wanted. The issue was that I was democratic. But the democratic national focus actually do not exclude the socialists. So I did the socialist coup, and I don't know if it's bugged, but what I experienced was that even though I controlled so much land, that it was still only the Afghani core original countries that were split in 50-50. So I easily won that and turned communist, which led me to the possibility of justifying on whoever was left that I wanted to conquer. At that point I disbanded my faction just for funds, to see how much challenge it would actually be, and I started conquering the world. But it was not that big of a challenge, given that I at that point had Canada, so I had a foothold in America where I could easily punch them out of the war, while the rest of the nations that were left were either neutral or that destroyed by the previous war, that they did not pose a real threat. It took some time, I could definitely have done it better, but overall I found this playthrough very easy and somewhat foolproof. I hope this could help you if you're trying to make it as Afghanistan right now. And if you watch this in order to verdict if you should buy Graveyards of Empires, I would still strongly say no. I'm of course glad there's more variation and national focuses in the game, but right now it still feels like there's so many weird bugs, and if you're at least playing on historical, it feels like that the national focuses do not work as intended. That's all from me. Thank you for sticking around if you did. And I would really like to know how other people experience the Afghan playthrough right now. So make a comment if you want to share how your game went, and make a comment if you want to share how your games went wrong or went right, or what weird bugs you ran into with Graveyard of Empires. And thank you again for sticking around. This is my first YouTube video in a long time. It's my first Hearts of Iron video. I hope you guys managed to at least get something useful out of it. Thank you. Bye.